Summer 1967, Fort Sentinel, Arizona. 112 degrees in the
Remember, the
shade, but there
trajectory of
is
the
no
bullet is
shade on
affected
the
by these
firing
ballistic
line.
coefficients. Pay
A
attention to the windage and
25-year-old
elevation
Marine
adjustments.
sergeant named Eli Whitlock is doing something that should get him laughed out of the service. He has
Let's
removed
break
the
down these
top cover
ballistics
from an
equations step by
M2
step.
Browning heavy
Pay
machine
attention to the
gun.
ratios and how they apply to our field
84
calculations.
pounds of steel designed to throw lead at enemy formations at 850 rounds per minute. A weapon so powerful it can cut a man in half at 1,000 yards. A weapon designed for suppression, not precision. Navy Seabees stand around him in the desert heat, watching as he marks measurements on the receiver with a grease pencil. They have already welded a custom mounting bracket to the gun's frame. Now they wait to see if this farm boy from Arkansas has lost his mind. Whitlock lifts an 8-power unertl scope, the same kind of scope he uses on his bolt-action Winchester. Except this is not a bolt-action rifle. This is a crew-served weapon that belongs on a tank or a fortification, not in the hands of a single shooter trying to make precision shots. The Marines watching probably think he's crazy. His commanding officer, Captain Thaddeus Crane, knows better. Crane has watched this kid shoot for months. He has seen what others refuse to believe. The man with the white feather tucked into his bush hat is about to redefine what is possible with aimed fire. Any rifle, even one that is not supposed to be a rifle at all. Whitlock settles behind the massive weapon. He has spent 3 days testing ammunition, selecting the most consistent lot from 500 rounds of belt-fed .50 caliber. He has zeroed the scope at 1,000 yards. 1,500, 2,000, and finally 2,430 yards. Nearly a mile and a half. Downrange, a full-size silhouette target stands against the rust-colored Arizona mountains. The distance is so great that atmospheric conditions between the shooter and the target create visible heat mirage. The air shimmers like water. Whitlock adjusts for windage. 12 miles per hour crosswind from the west. He calculates bullet drop. At this distance, the round will fall nearly 60 feet from the bore axis before reaching the target. He fires. The recoil is tremendous, even with the weapon's mass and the sandbags stabilizing it. The muzzle blast kicks up a cloud of desert dust. 3.2 seconds pass. In that time, the bullet travels through layers of air with different temperatures and densities. It fights a crosswind that tries to push it off course. It sheds velocity as it arcs through its parabolic trajectory. Then through the scope, Whitlock sees the silhouette snap backward. Hit. 2,430 yards, 1.4 miles, the longest confirmed shot in recorded history. The hook. The United States Marine Corps called a scoped machine gun absurd engineering and a waste of taxpayer resources, until it set a world record that would stand for 35 years. Consider the mathematics. In 1967, the standard Marine Corps sniper rifle was the Winchester Model 70 chambered in .308. Maximum effective range 800 yards. Beyond that, bullet drop and wind drift made accurate fire nearly impossible. Enemy snipers in the CIA's Red Cell training program operated from 1,200 to 2,000 yards. They were untouchable. Eli Whitlock's modified M2 Browning changed that calculation completely. Range 2,430 yards. More than triple the effective range of standard sniper rifles. The .50 BMG cartridge delivered 13,000 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle compared to 2,500 for the .308 Winchester. It maintained supersonic velocity past 2,000 yards. It could defeat light armor and fortifications that would stop rifle rounds cold. The previous long-range shooting record was 1,538 yards. Set by buffalo hunter Billy Dixon at the Second Battle of Adobe Walls in 1874. That record had stood for 93 years. Whitlock beat it by nearly 900 yards. With a weapon that was not designed for precision shooting. Using standard military ball ammunition, not match-grade rounds. In desert heat that created mirage and wind conditions that would make most shooters pack up and go home. When Canadian snipers finally broke Whitlock's record in 2002 during operations in Afghanistan, they did it with purpose-built 50-caliber rifles, match-grade ammunition, laser rangefinders, ballistic computers, and decades of technological advancement. Whitlock had ingenuity, a welding torch, and 3 days to figure it out. But the question that matters is not how he made the shot. The question is why anyone would try something so apparently insane in the first place. The answer begins with a problem that was killing Marines in training exercises and would kill them for real in combat if someone didn't solve it fast. The crisis: Fort Sentinel Advanced Training Complex, 60 miles northeast of Tucson, 1966. The Marines have a problem and Captain Thaddeus Crane has been ordered to solve it. The Central Intelligence Agency runs a program called Red Cell. The concept is simple: train CIA operatives to think and fight like enemy forces so American troops can learn to counter them. Red Cell fighters use enemy weapons, enemy tactics, and enemy doctrine. They operate without the constraints of American military regulations. At Fort Sentinel, Red Cell snipers are teaching Marines a brutal lesson. They are winning. Red Cell operates from positions 1,200 to 2,000 yards away from Marine training areas. They use captured Soviet Dragunov rifles with 4-power scopes. They use Czech CZ rifles with 8-power optics. They have the high ground, the patience, and the range advantage. In training exercises designed to simulate combat conditions as closely as possible, 3 Marines have been killed in 2 weeks. In real combat, those 3 men would be in body bags. In real combat, that number would be much higher because the enemy would not stop shooting after scoring hits. The Marines cannot return effective fire. Their Winchester Model 70 rifles are outstanding weapons, accurate and reliable, but they are chambered for .308 Winchester, a cartridge designed for 800-yard engagements. Beyond that range, the bullets lose too much velocity. Wind drift becomes too severe. Bullet drop requires so much elevation that the scope runs out of adjustment. The Red Cell snipers know this. They position themselves just outside effective rifle range and pick off Marines with impunity. It is the same tactic Viet Cong snipers are using in Southeast Asia. It is the same tactic Soviet snipers would use if the Cold War ever turned hot in Europe. American doctrine has no answer. Sniper manuals say snipers fight snipers with counter-sniper tactics, stealth, concealment, patience, and accurate fire from bolt-action rifles. But that doctrine assumes both sides are shooting similar weapons at similar ranges. What happens when the enemy outranges you by 500 to 1,000 yards? Captain Crane knows what happens. You lose. Your men die. You fail the mission. Crane is 42 years old, a Korean War veteran with 2 Purple Hearts and a Silver Star. He helped establish the Marine Corps' first formal sniper training program in 1961. He knows precision shooting better than almost anyone in the Corps. He knows that if this problem is not solved, Marines will die by the dozens when they deploy to Southeast Asia, where Viet Cong snipers are already using the same standoff tactics Red Cell is demonstrating every day at Fort Sentinel. Crane has been authorized to recruit from anywhere in the Marine Corps. He has been given access to any weapon in the inventory. He has been told to solve this problem by any means necessary. He has no doctrine to follow because there is no doctrine for this. The enemy has changed the rules. Crane needs someone who can change them back. He is sitting in his office reviewing service records when he finds the file for Private First Class Eli Whitlock, Military Police, Fort Sentinel, age 24, rifle qualification score 248 out of 250, expert marksman. But that is not what makes Crane stop reading and pick up the phone. 3 lines down there is a notation: Wimbledon Cup winner 1965, Camp Perry, Ohio, 1,000-yard slow fire, first place. The Wimbledon Cup is the most prestigious long-range rifle competition in America. Crane has shot at Camp Perry. He knows what it takes to win. It takes more than good eyes and steady hands. It takes an understanding of ballistics that cannot be taught in any manual. It takes the ability to read wind that most men never develop in a lifetime of shooting. It takes the mental discipline to make a cold, precise shot, with 200 people watching and 150 years of history weighing on your trigger finger. and the reigning Wimbledon Cup champion is checking identification cards at the front gate of Fort Sentinel. Crane makes a phone call. 20 minutes later, Private First Class Eli Whitlock stands at attention in his office. Crane looks at him. Farm boy, 6 feet tall, maybe 160 pounds, pale skin that burns in the Arizona sun. Quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from growing up in a place where you learn not to waste words. Private Whitlock, do you know why you're here? No, sir. How many rounds did you fire to win the Wimbledon Cup? 40 rounds, sir. Slow fire at 1,000 yards. What was your score? 200 out of 200, sir. Perfect score was not possible. I took second place on the shoot-off. Crane had looked this up already. Whitlock had tied for first with a Marine gunnery sergeant who had been shooting competitively for 12 years. The tiebreaker came down to group size. Whitlock's 40 shots at 1,000 yards grouped inside 7 inches. The gunnery sergeant's grouped inside 9. 7 inches at 1,000 yards, less than 3/4 of 1 minute of angle. That kind of precision is almost inhuman. Private Whitlock, how would you kill a sniper who's shooting at you from 1,500 yards? Whitlock does not hesitate. I'd get within 800 yards, sir, and shoot him with my rifle. What if you can't get within 800 yards? What if the terrain won't allow it? Now Whitlock hesitates. He is thinking. Crane can see it in his eyes. The kid is not giving an answer he thinks Crane wants to hear. He is actually working through the problem. Then I'd need a different weapon, sir. Something that can reach 1,500 yards with enough energy to be lethal. Like what? A 50 caliber, sir. M2 Browning throws a 50 BMG round. That cartridge will maintain lethality past 2,000 yards if you can aim it accurately. The M2 is a machine gun. Yes, sir. Machine guns are suppression weapons. You spray lead in the general direction of the enemy and hope some of it hits. That's how most people use them, sir. Crane leans back in his chair. This kid has just told him something that contradicts everything the Marine Corps teaches about crew-served weapons. And he said it without arrogance, without hesitation. He said it like he was describing the weather. Private Whitlock, report to the armory at 0600 tomorrow. You're going to teach me how to turn a machine gun into a sniper rifle. Aye, aye, sir. As Whitlock turns to leave, Crane notices something tucked into the band of his utility cover. A white feather. Eagle feather, maybe. It stands out stark against the desert camouflage. Private, what's with the feather? Whitlock touches it briefly. My grandmother gave it to me, sir. She said a real hunter doesn't hide from his prey. She said prey should know when death is coming for them. Crane does not know what to make of that. It sounds like something from another century. Something from a time when warfare was more personal, more primitive. He will understand it better later. When red cell snipers are whispering about the white feather, when they are afraid to take positions where the white feather might see them, when that single feather becomes more effective psychological warfare than any pamphlet or radio broadcast. But that is later. Right now, Crane just nods. Dismissed. The solution. Before Eli Whitlock became the white feather, before he set records that would stand for decades, before he became the most feared sniper in Marine Corps history, he was just a hungry kid from Arkansas who learned to shoot because missing meant his family went hungry. This part of the story takes 90 seconds because that is all it deserves. Whitlock did not win the Wimbledon Cup because he had an interesting childhood. He won it because he developed skills that most men never achieve. The childhood just explains where those skills came from. Wynwood, Arkansas. Cotton country in the eastern part of the state where the land is flat and the soil is rich, and the Great Depression left scars that lasted for decades. Eli Whitlock was born there on May 20th, 1942. His parents' marriage did not survive his childhood. When they separated, young Eli went to live with his grandmother, Maeve Whitlock, in a house that was old when she was young. Food was never guaranteed. The Depression had ended, but its lessons remained. You ate what you could grow or kill. Maeve gave her grandson a Stevens Model 15, a single-shot .22 caliber rifle that cost maybe $12 new. She gave him a box of cartridges. The message was clear: make every shot count. Miss and you walk home empty-handed. Miss too often and the family eats beans instead of meat. Eli did not miss often. He hunted squirrels in the hardwood bottoms along the creeks. He hunted rabbits in the fence rows. He learned to move so slowly through the woods that animals did not know he was there until it was too late. He learned to read wind by watching leaves move. He learned to judge distance by comparing an animal's size to his front sight post. He learned that patience was more important than speed, that stillness was more important than camouflage, that the shot itself was just the final moment of a process that began hours earlier. These were not skills anyone taught him. They grew from necessity, from long afternoons alone in the woods, from the pressure of knowing that accuracy meant his grandmother could make squirrel stew instead of going to bed hungry. On his 17th birthday, May 20th, 1959, Eli walked into a Marine Corps recruiting office in Little Rock, with his mother's written permission, and enlisted. He wanted to be a Marine more than he wanted anything else in life. Boot camp at San Diego revealed what the Arkansas woods had already shaped: a natural marksman of extraordinary ability. He qualified expert 248 out of 250 points. The 2 points he lost were from rounds that hit one ring outside the bullseye at 500 yards, rounds that would have killed a man just as dead as bullseye hits. But the scoring system does not care about dead. It cares about perfect. Over the next 6 years, Whitlock competed in rifle matches across the country. He set range records. He won regional championships. His competitive shooting career culminated at age 23 when he claimed the nation's most prestigious title at Camp Perry, Ohio. Now 1 year later, at Captain Crane's order, he stands in front of an M2 Browning heavy machine gun trying to figure out how to turn it into a precision instrument. The M2 has been in service since 1933. John Browning designed it. It fires the 50 BMG cartridge, a round so powerful it was originally designed for anti-aircraft use. Muzzle velocity 2,800 feet per second. Muzzle energy 13,000 foot-pounds. At 1,000 yards, that bullet still carries more energy than a .308 Winchester has at the muzzle. The problem is not the cartridge. The cartridge is perfect. The problem is the weapon. The M2 weighs 84 pounds. It is designed to be fired from a tripod by a crew. The barrel is not free-floated like a rifle barrel. It is clamped to the receiver. The trigger mechanism is designed for full automatic fire, not single precise shots. The ammunition feeds from a belt, and belt-fed ammunition is not consistent. Round-to-round variation in powder charge, bullet weight, and seating depth can be significant. That variation does not matter when you are throwing 850 rounds per minute at an enemy position. It matters a great deal when you are trying to hit a man-sized target at 1,500 yards. Whitlock explains this to Captain Crane and 5 other Marines who have been selected for the experimental sniper program. He explains it standing in the desert heat with the M2 mounted on its tripod in front of him, speaking in the same quiet voice he used when answering Crane's questions. Think of it like this, Whitlock says. A rifle is like a garden hose. You point it where you want the water to go, you squeeze the trigger, water comes out where you aimed. A machine gun is like a fire hose. You point it in the general direction and it throws water everywhere. The pressure's too high. The nozzle moves around. You're not trying to hit a specific spot. You're trying to wet down the whole area. He pats the M2's receiver. We need to turn this fire hose into a garden hose. We need to control the pressure. We need to make sure it points at exactly the same place every time, and we need to know where that place is. One of the Marines, a corporal named Hayes, speaks up. How do you control a machine gun that weighs 84 pounds and kicks like a mule? Weight, Whitlock says. Weight and friction. The M2 already weighs 84 pounds. We add 60 pounds of sandbags to the tripod. That's 144 pounds of mass-resisting recoil. Then we disconnect the belt feed mechanism and hand-load 1 round at a time. Single shot only. That eliminates the recoil impulse from the bolt cycling back and forth. What about the scope? another Marine asks. Whitlock picks up the unearthly 8-power scope sitting on a crate nearby. Navy Seabees are going to weld a mounting bracket to the receiver. We'll mount the scope just like on a bolt gun. 8-power magnification at the ranges we're talking about is marginal, but it's what we have. What about ammunition consistency? We test it, Whitlock says. I've already fired 500 rounds through 3 different M2s measuring velocity with a chronograph. I found one lot of ammunition where round-to-round variation is less than 30 feet per second. At 2,000 yards, 30 feet per second variation translates to about 6 inches of vertical dispersion. I can work with 6 inches. Captain Crane watches this and says nothing. He has not told Whitlock what to do. He has not given him a manual to follow. He has simply presented him with a problem and let him figure it out. And Whitlock has figured it out using nothing but an understanding of physics and ballistics that he learned through years of making shots that other people said were impossible. This is not something you can teach. Either a man understands how bullets fly through air, or he does not. Either he can read wind or he cannot. Either he has the patience to test 500 rounds of ammunition looking for consistency, or he gives up and declares the whole thing impossible. Whitlock does not give up. He never has. 3 days later, the Seabees finish welding the scope mount. Whitlock spends another 2 days bore sighting the scope and zeroing it at progressively longer ranges. 1,000 yards first, then 1,200, 1,500, 2,000, finally 2,430 yards, the absolute maximum range the Fort Sentinel impact area allows. At each distance, he fires 3 round groups. He measures them. He records the data. He adjusts the scope. He fires again. The process is methodical, almost meditative. There is no wasted motion, no frustration when a group is larger than he wants. Just adjustment and repetition until the groups tighten to an acceptable size. By the end of the 2nd day, Whitlock can hit a man-sized target at 1,200 yards 10 times out of 10. At 1,500 yards, 8 out of 10. At 2,000 yards, 6 out of 10. Captain Crane watches the last group at 1,500 yards. 3 rounds, 8-inch spread. Any of those rounds would have killed a man. Private Whitlock. Crane says, I'm sending a request to headquarters for authorization to field test this system. They're going to say no. Machine guns are crew-served weapons. There are regulations. There's doctrine. None of it allows for what you just did. Yes, sir, Whitlock says. So I'm going to tell them we're doing it anyway. I'm going to tell them that if this works, it will save lives. If it doesn't work, I'll take full responsibility and they can end my career. But we're doing it regardless of what some desk officer in Washington thinks about regulations. Whitlock looks at Crane. For the first time since they met, something like respect shows in his eyes. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet, Crane says. If this goes wrong, we both get court-martialed. If it goes right, you just changed how the Marine Corps fights wars. Either way, your life is about to get very complicated. He is more right than he knows, but that comes later. Right now, Eli Whitlock just nods and begins the process of cleaning the M2. Wiping down every surface, treating the weapon with the same care he would give a fine rifle. Because that is what it is now. Not a machine gun, a rifle. The most powerful rifle any military sniper has ever carried into battle. And in 3 weeks, it is going to prove itself in a way that makes the Marine Corps rewrite their training manuals and causes enemy snipers to abandon positions they thought were untouchable. But first, Whitlock has to make a shot that should be impossible. A shot at a range where most shooters would not even attempt to engage, a shot that will set a world record and stand for 35 years. He is ready. The weapon is ready. The ammunition is tested. The scope is zeroed. All that remains is the target. Captain Crane's request for authorization arrives at Marine Corps headquarters on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, it has been denied. The reasoning is clear and bureaucratic. The M2 Browning is designated as a crew-served weapon under Title 10 of the United States Code. Operating it as a single-shooter precision system violates federal regulations governing military equipment. There are liability concerns. There are questions about the chain of command if something goes wrong. There are officers whose entire careers have been built on maintaining proper doctrine, and this request violates everything they know about how machine guns should be employed. Crane reads the denial, crumples it, and throws it in the trash. Private Whitlock, he says, "We're doing it anyway. If headquarters wants to court-martial me afterward, they can get in line behind my ex-wife and the IRS." This is the moment that defines Crane's career. Not his silver star from Korea, not his 2 Purple Hearts. This moment, when he decides that saving Marine lives matters more than his pension. When he chooses to trust a 24-year-old farm boy over 3 decades of military doctrine. Whitlock simply nods. He expected nothing less. The Red Cell snipers operate from a ridgeline 8 miles north of Fort Sentinel's main training area. The ridge rises 300 feet above the desert floor and offers clear observation of the Marine positions below. It is perfect sniper terrain, clear fields of fire, multiple escape routes, high ground advantage, and most importantly, it sits at ranges between 2,000 and 2,500 yards from where Marines conduct training exercises completely outside effective rifle range. For 3 days, Whitlock observes the ridge through a spotting scope. He is not looking for targets yet. He is learning patterns. When do the Red Cell snipers arrive? When do they leave? Where do they position themselves? How do they move? Do they use the same hide sites repeatedly, or do they vary their positions? A sniper who does not study his enemy is just a man with a rifle. Whitlock learned this hunting squirrels in Arkansas. The principles do not change when the prey is human. By the 3rd day, he has the pattern. Red Cell snipers arrive at the ridge around 0600 before the desert heat builds and before training exercises begin. They position themselves in a cluster of boulders on the western end of the ridge. They stay until mid-morning, then withdraw. Same time every day, same general location. They feel safe. They have operated from this ridge for 2 months without taking fire. Marine rifles cannot reach them. The Marines know it. The Red Cell snipers know it. It has become routine. Routine kills. Whitlock establishes his position at 0400 on day 4, 2 hours before the Red Cell snipers arrive. He chooses a spot in a wash that provides a stable shooting platform and concealment from ground-level observation. The range to the boulder cluster is 2,430 yards. He has already zeroed his scope for this exact distance. Corporal Silas Webb, his spotter, sets up beside him with a 20-power spotting scope. Webb is 22 years old from Montana, and he has hunted elk in country where a 400-yard shot is considered close range. He understands what Whitlock is attempting, and he thinks it is impossible. But he has seen Whitlock shoot. He has seen the groups at 2,000 yards, so he suspends his disbelief and does his job. "Winder," Webb says quietly, reading the mirage through his spotting scope. 12 miles per hour right to left, temp 94 degrees, pressure 29.85. Whitlock makes the mental calculations. At 2,400 yards, a 12-mile-per-hour crosswind will push his bullet approximately 40 inches. He adjusts his scope accordingly. The bullet will drop 58 feet from bore axis by the time it reaches the target. His scope is already adjusted for that drop based on his zeroing sessions. They wait. At 05:53, figures appear on the ridge. 2 men and 1 woman. They move with practiced efficiency, establishing positions among the boulders. The woman carries a Dragunov rifle with a 4-power scope. One of the men has a Czech CZ. The 3rd man appears to be a spotter. They settle in. They do not know they are being watched. They do not know that for the first time in 2 months they are within range of Marine weapons. Whitlock observes them through his 8-power scope. At this distance they are small. Not quite stick figures, but close. He can distinguish body mass from the rock around them, but facial features are impossible. They are targets, shapes, silhouettes. This is what 2,400 yards does to the human form. It removes humanity. It makes killing abstract. At 800 yards, you see faces, you see expressions, you see the moment when understanding arrives, when a man realizes he has been shot. At 2,400 yards, you see shapes move and then stop moving. That is all. Whitlock does not think about this consciously. He simply settles into what he calls the bubble, A state of complete concentration where nothing exists except the target, the wind, the weapon, and the shot. Time slows, heartbeat slows, the world narrows to a circle 8-power magnification wide. Webb watches through the spotting scope. Target right, female with Dragunov, stationary. Whitlock finds her in his scope. She is sitting behind a boulder rifle across her lap, scanning the training area below. Looking for Marines who do not know she is there, looking for targets. She is about to become one. Whitlock's breathing slows, 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. On the third exhale, he begins his trigger press. Smooth, steady, no jerking, just constant rearward pressure until the sear releases. The M2 fires. The recoil is substantial even with 144 pounds of weapon and sandbags stabilizing it. The muzzle blast kicks up dust that momentarily obscures Whitlock's view through the scope. By the time the dust clears, he has already reacquired the target area. Webb is calling it. Stand by, flight time 3.2 seconds. They watch. 3.2 seconds is longer than most people think. It is enough time to have a complete thought. Enough time to wonder if you calculated the wind correctly. Enough time to question everything about the shot you just made. Then through the 20-power spotting scope, Webb sees it. The female red cell sniper stands up abruptly. Her rifle falls. She clutches her chest and goes down behind the boulder. Hit, Webb says quietly. Center mass. She's down. Through his scope, Whitlock sees movement. The other 2 red cell fighters are scrambling, looking around, trying to determine where the shot came from. They cannot figure it out. They are looking at the tree line, at nearby positions. They are not looking 2,400 yards away because nobody shoots from that distance. Whitlock chambers another round manually. The M2's belt feed has been disconnected. Every shot is hand-loaded. He finds the second target in his scope, one of the men now crouching behind a boulder, scanning with binoculars. Whitlock fires again. This time he watches the entire flight, watches the trace of the bullet as it arcs up and then down across the desert morning. Watches it arrive. The man drops. The third red cell fighter breaks and runs. Smart. Survival instinct overrides training. When the position is compromised and you do not know where fire is coming from, you move. Fast. Whitlock tracks him through the scope, but does not fire. The man disappears into dead ground behind the ridge. 2 shots, 2 hits, 2,430 yards. Captain Crane, observing from 30 yards behind Whitlock's position, lowers his binoculars. He does not say anything for a long moment. He is processing what he just saw, reconciling it with everything he knows about ballistics and marksmanship and what is supposed to be possible. Finally, he speaks. Private Whitlock, do you understand what you just did? Yes, sir, Whitlock says. He is already cleaning the M2, running a bore snake through the barrel. I proved the concept works. You set a world record, Crane says. The previous record was 1,538 yards. You just beat it by almost 900 yards. Whitlock shrugs. Record doesn't matter, sir. What matters is red cell snipers just learned they're not safe anymore. What matters is when we deploy Marines to Southeast Asia, they'll have a weapon system that can reach out past anything the enemy has. Crane realizes something in that moment. Whitlock does not care about records or recognition. He cares about solving problems. He cares about giving Marines an advantage. Everything else is just noise. We're going to need to document this, Crane says. Headquarters will want verification. Roger that, sir. What Crane does not say, what he is thinking but keeps to himself, is that this changes everything. Not just for Fort Sentinel, not just for the Red Cell program, for every military in the world, because if a 24-year-old private can figure out how to turn a machine gun into a precision instrument, every other military will figure it out too. And when they do, when scoped 50 caliber rifles become standard equipment, warfare will change. Snipers will engage from distances that seem impossible now. Casualties will increase. The mathematics of combat will shift, all because a farm boy from Arkansas refused to accept that something could not be done. The Feather Legend. The white feather appears the next day. Whitlock has carried it with him since leaving Arkansas. His grandmother gave it to him the day he shipped out to boot camp. She said it came from an eagle she saw near the creek behind her house. She said eagles know when death is near. She said a hunter who wears the eagle's feather tells his prey that death is coming and there is nothing they can do about it. Whitlock does not know if the story is true. Grandmother Maeve told a lot of stories. Some were true. Some were lessons disguised as stories. It does not matter, the feather matters. It is a connection to home. To the woods where he learned to hunt, to a simpler time when the only thing he killed was squirrels and rabbits. Now he tucks it into the elastic band of his bush hat, white against desert camouflage. Visible from 100 yards, the other Marines notice immediately. Corporal Hayes, one of the snipers in Whitlock's training program, sees it during morning formation and cannot stay quiet. "Whitlock, what's with the feather? You trying to help the enemy spot you?" Whitlock adjusts his cover. "That's the point. That's insane." "Maybe." Whitlock's voice is quiet as always, factual. "But if they're looking for a white feather, they're not looking for anyone else. And if they're afraid of the white feather, they make mistakes. Fear makes everyone stupid." Hayes does not have a response to that. None of the other Marines do either. Captain Crane hears about it within an hour. He calls Whitlock to his office. "Private, I'm told you're wearing a white feather in your cover." "Yes, sir." "Care to explain why you're making yourself a target?" Whitlock considers the question. "Sir, red cell snipers need to learn they're being hunted. Right now they think they're predators. They think they're safe. They need to know there's something out there that can kill them from distances they didn't think were possible. The feather tells them that. It's psychological warfare." Crane leans back in his chair. "That's either brilliant or suicidal. Possibly both. If they put a bounty on me specifically, they'll focus resources on one target instead of 10. That makes everyone else safer. And makes you considerably less safe." "Yes, sir." Crane studies him. There is no bravado in Whitlock's demeanor, no ego. He is simply stating facts and accepting consequences. He has calculated the tactical value of making himself a target and decided it is worth the risk. "All right," Crane says finally, "but if you get yourself killed because you're wearing a feather, I'm going to be very disappointed." "I'll do my best to avoid that, sir." Within a week, other Marines in the sniper program start wearing white feathers. It spreads like a contagion. Some wear real feathers. Some wear white fabric strips. Some paint white marks on their covers. The red cell intelligence people do not know what to make of it. Is there one white feather sniper, or many? Are they all skilled, or is it camouflage for lesser shooters? The confusion is valuable, more valuable than Whitlock anticipated. Red cell snipers become cautious. They vary their positions more. They spend less time in any one location. They take fewer shots. Their effectiveness decreases by 40% in 3 weeks. All because of a symbol, a white feather, a psychological weapon that costs nothing and kills no one but makes the enemy afraid. The red cell leadership responds predictably. They put a price on the white feather sniper. Not an official bounty because this is still training and there are regulations. But in the informal system of competition that governs red cell operations, the fighter who can defeat the white feather in an exercise earns bragging rights and the respect of peers. The unofficial price is substantial. Enough that every red cell sniper wants the kill. Enough that they start taking risks they would not normally take. Whitlock has made himself the most valuable target on the training range, and he has done it deliberately. Widow 6. Her real name is classified. Everyone calls her Widow 6. She is 32 years old, Cuban-born, CIA-trained, and the most effective psychological warfare specialist in the Red Cell program. She does not just train fighters, she breaks them. Her specialty is making training so realistic, so psychologically brutal that Marines who survive it are prepared for anything they will face in actual combat. She uses sound effects, recordings of men screaming. She uses simulated torture scenarios. She makes training exercises personal, visceral, traumatic. Some Marines refuse to continue training after encountering Widow 6. They request transfers. They wash out. This is intentional. Widow 6 believes that men who cannot handle simulated horror will die when they face real horror. Better they discover this in training than in combat. The Marine Corps tolerates her methods because they work. Marines who train under Widow 6 perform better in combat. They have lower casualty rates. They do not freeze. They do not panic. They have been prepared for the worst, so when the worst arrives, they handle it. But there is a cost. Widow 6's exercises leave psychological scars. Some Marines who train under her develop symptoms that look like combat stress even though they have never seen combat. Nightmares, hypervigilance, difficulty sleeping. The Marine Corps considers this acceptable collateral damage in exchange for combat effectiveness. Whitlock first encounters Widow 6 during week 4 of the sniper program. She conducts an exercise designed to simulate the capture and interrogation of a Marine sniper by enemy forces. The exercise uses sound recordings, screaming, begging, the sounds of pain. Marines participating in the exercise can hear these sounds broadcast across the training area. They know it is simulated. They know no one is actually being tortured. But the sounds are realistic enough that the knowing does not help. Several Marines in Whitlock's program refuse to continue after this exercise. They cannot function with those sounds playing. They cannot concentrate. They cannot shoot. The psychological pressure breaks them. Whitlock listens to the recordings for 3 hours while maintaining his position. He does not move, does not react. When the exercise ends, Captain Crane asks him how he handled it. "I didn't listen, sir." "You heard it. Everyone heard it." "I heard sounds," Whitlock says. "I didn't listen. There's a difference. When you hunt, you hear lots of sounds. Birds, wind, branches, you don't listen to all of it. You filter, you only pay attention to sounds that matter. Everything else is noise." This answer bothers Crane more than he wants to admit, because it suggests something about Whitlock that is both useful and troubling. The ability to filter out human suffering, to classify screaming as noise, to separate emotion from action so completely that psychological warfare does not work. Crane wonders if Whitlock was like this before the Marines or if the Marines made him this way. He does not ask. Some questions do not have good answers. Widow 6 hears about Whitlock's response to her exercise. She takes it as a challenge. If one Marine can filter out her psychological warfare, she needs to refine her techniques. She needs to find what breaks him. She begins operating closer to the white feather's known positions. She broadcasts new recordings, more realistic, more visceral. She times them to coincide with training exercises when Whitlock is trying to shoot. It does not work. Whitlock continues to filter, continues to ignore, continues to shoot with the same cold precision he has always shown. So Widow 6 changes tactics. She starts targeting Marines close to Whitlock, not him directly but the men around him. She makes training exercises more difficult for his friends, his fellow snipers. She creates scenarios where their mistakes cost points, cost recognition, cost respect. This works better. Whitlock does not react to sounds of suffering, but he does react when people he knows are being targeted. He becomes more protective, more aggressive in how he conducts training. He starts taking risks. Widow 6 notices this. She documents it in her after-action reports. The white feather sniper shows no emotional response to general suffering but demonstrates protective instincts towards specific individuals within his unit. Exploitable weakness identified. When Crane reads this report, he calls Widow 6 to his office. "You're targeting one of my Marines personally. I'm testing his psychological resilience, Captain. That's my job. Your job is to prepare Marines for combat, not to break them." Widow 6 does not back down. "How do you know which he is until you test him? If the white feather breaks during training, you learn it now. If he breaks during combat, people die." Crane knows she is right. He hates that she is right, but he knows it. "Fine," he says. "But I want you to understand something. That Marine you're testing, he just set a world record. He just proved a concept that's going to change how we fight wars. If you break him, you cost this Corps something irreplaceable. So test him if you must, but be very careful you don't destroy what you're testing." Widow 6 nods. "Understood, Captain." She leaves Crane's office with a new understanding. The white feather is not just another Marine. He is valuable, important, which means breaking him would be a significant achievement, career-making even. She begins planning her next exercise. Something that will force the white feather to make impossible choices. Something that will find his breaking point. What she does not understand yet is that Whitlock does not have a breaking point, not in the way she thinks. His breaking point is not emotional, it is moral, and when she crosses it, the response will not be a breakdown, it will be something much more direct, the hunt. Widow 6 designs her final exercise with care. She positions herself on the same ridge where Whitlock made his record shot. She operates at 2,300 yards. Just within range of his scoped M2, but at the absolute edge of what most people would consider a possible shot. She broadcasts her psychological warfare recordings. She times them to create maximum stress during live fire exercises, and she does something new. She starts broadcasting recordings that sound like specific Marines. Not their actual voices, but close enough. Close enough that Marines in training hear what sounds like their friends screaming. This is the line. The boundary that should not be crossed even in training. Several Marines file complaints. The exercises are too realistic, too traumatic. They are causing actual psychological harm, not just stress inoculation. Captain Crane receives these complaints and knows he should shut the exercise down. But he also knows that what Widow 6 is doing, as brutal as it is, mirrors what enemy forces actually do in combat. Viet Cong fighters are using the same tactics in Southeast Asia. They broadcast propaganda. They play recordings of Americans screaming. They make the battlefield psychological as well as physical. If Marines cannot handle it in training, they will not handle it in combat. So Crane approves the continuation of the exercise. With one addition, he assigns Whitlock to hunt Widow 6, to find her position and eliminate her from the exercise with a simulated kill. Whitlock accepts the mission without comment. He has been waiting for this, waiting for permission to stop filtering out Widow 6's broadcasts and start treating them as a targeting solution. The hunt takes 3 weeks. Widow 6 is good, very good. She does not use the same position twice. She varies her timing. She moves unpredictably. She has counter-surveillance training and she uses it. Finding her would be difficult even without the range disadvantage. But Whitlock has one advantage she does not anticipate. He is patient beyond anything she has encountered before. He does not rush, does not take hasty shots. He observes for days before acting. He learns her patterns even when she thinks she does not have patterns. By the 3rd week, he knows her tendencies. She prefers high ground with western exposure. She operates in the 2 hours after dawn when light conditions favor her observation of Marine positions below. She moves between positions using low ground to avoid being skylined. On day 19, Whitlock predicts where she will be. A cluster of rocks on the western edge of the ridge, 680 yards from his position. Not as far as his record shot, but far enough to be challenging with standard wind conditions. He and Corporal Webb establish position at 0400. An hour before dawn, 2 hours before Widow 6 typically arrives. They wait. At 0540 movement on the ridge. 3 figures, 2 men and 1 woman. Widow 6 travels with the security element now. She has learned that lesson after Whitlock's record shot. She does not operate alone. The 3 figures settle into the rocks. Widow 6 sets up her equipment. One of the men scans with binoculars. The other provides security. Whitlock watches through his scope. 8 power magnification at 680 yards provides a clear image. He can see Widow 6 adjusting her broadcasting equipment, can see her checking sight lines to the Marine training areas below. She feels safe. She has taken precautions. She has security. She is operating from a position she has never used before. She does not know she has been predicted. Webb calls wind. 6 miles per hour left to right, temp 78 degrees. Whitlock adjusts. At this range, wind drift is manageable. 18 inches maybe. He has shot in worse conditions. His breathing slows. The bubble forms, the world narrows. Widow 6 stands, stretching her back. For 3 seconds, she is completely exposed. No rocks between her and Whitlock's position. He fires. The shot is clean. The bullet strikes her center mass. In a real combat situation, it would be lethal. In this training exercise, it means she is eliminated, out of play. Her security element reacts immediately, scanning for the shooter. But they are looking in the wrong direction. They are expecting threat from below from the Marine positions, not from another elevated position 600 yards away. Whitlock fires again. One of the security guards, down. The third man breaks and runs, smart. Through his spotting scope, Webb watches Widow 6 pick herself up. She is looking at the paint mark on her vest where Whitlock's training round hit. She is scanning the terrain, trying to figure out where the shot came from. Then she looks directly toward Whitlock's position. Even at 680 yards, even without magnification, she seems to see him. She raises one hand in acknowledgement, the hunter recognizing someone better at the hunt than she is at hiding. As she walks off the ridge with her security element already eliminated from the exercise, she is smiling. Webb lowers his spotting scope. "Sir, I think she's happy we got her." "Probably," Whitlock says. He is already cleaning his weapon. "Some people just want to know if something is possible. Now she knows." What Whitlock does not say, what he is thinking but does not speak aloud, is that he saw Widow 6's face through his scope before he fired. Saw her as a person, not a target, and he fired anyway. Because the mission required it. Because eliminating her from the exercise meant other Marines would not have to hear her broadcasts anymore. This is the first time he has consciously aimed at a human-shaped target and pulled the trigger while seeing that target as human. Before, at 2,400 yards, the targets were abstract, shapes, silhouettes. At 680 yards, they are people. He does not like how easy it was, does not like that he did not hesitate, does not like the implication that he can compartmentalize killing to this degree. But he does not regret it either. The mission is complete. Widow 6 is neutralized. That is all that matters. Captain Crane receives the after-action report and reads it carefully. He notes the range, the conditions, the outcome. He also notes something else. Widow 6's addendum to the report, one line. "The White Feather sniper is operationally ready. Recommend immediate deployment." Crane knows what this means. Widow 6 has tested Whitlock as thoroughly as possible within the constraints of training. She has tried to break him psychologically. She has failed. Her professional opinion is that Whitlock can handle real combat, can handle killing, can handle the moral weight of being a sniper. Crane sits alone in his office for a long time after reading that line. He thinks about the kid from Arkansas who just wanted to be a Marine, who learned to shoot because his family needed food, who won the Wimbledon Cup and set world records and turned a machine gun into a precision instrument. That kid is gone now. In his place is a weapon, the most effective long-range shooter in Marine Corps history, a man who can filter out psychological warfare, who can see a human target at 600 yards and pull the trigger without hesitation. Crane does not know if he should be proud of this or horrified by it. Probably both. He signs the deployment recommendation and forwards it to headquarters. 3 weeks later, the orders arrive. The experimental long-range sniper program is being operationalized. Whitlock is promoted to sergeant and assigned to Hill 285, a permanent training facility where he will teach other Marines what he has learned. The White Feather is no longer just a symbol. It is becoming a legend, and legends have a way of taking on lives of their own. But that is still to come. Right now, Sergeant Eli Whitlock just keeps doing what he has always done. He shoots, he teaches, he solves problems. And he wears the White Feather in his cover, telling anyone who can see it that death is coming and there is nothing they can do about it. The man who arrives at Fort Sentinel in August of 1968 does not look like a killer. He is 34 years old, medium height, wireframe glasses, thinning hair. He moves with the careful economy of someone who has learned not to waste motion. His name is classified. Everyone calls him Rattler. Rattler competed in the 1964 Olympics in Tokyo. Rifle shooting, 50-meter 3 position. He placed 7th. After the Olympics, he spent 2 years in Rhodesia training counterinsurgency forces. Then the CIA recruited him for Red Cell. He has been teaching Marines how to die for 6 months. He is very good at it. His specialty is counter-sniper operations. He studies how snipers think, how they move, how they choose positions. He can predict where a sniper will establish his hide site based on terrain and mission parameters. He has killed or eliminated 11 Marine snipers in training exercises. 11 men who thought they were hunters until they met someone who hunted hunters. Now the CIA has given him a specific mission: defeat the White Feather, prove that the scoped M2 Browning system has limitations, prove that one exceptional shooter does not represent a viable doctrine change, prove that the Marine Corps is investing resources in a weapon system that can be countered by a trained professional. Rattler accepts this mission with the same careful consideration he applies to everything. He studies Whitlock's training records, his qualification scores, his competition history, the after-action reports from Widow 6. He builds a profile. The White Feather is patient, extraordinarily patient. He does not take hasty shots. He observes for extended periods before engaging. He prefers elevated positions with clear fields of fire at extreme ranges. He is most effective between 1,200 and 2,500 yards. At shorter ranges, his advantage decreases. The scoped M2 is optimized for long-range work. Inside 800 yards, a trained rifleman with a bolt gun has equal or superior capability. This gives Rattler his tactical approach: close the distance. Operate inside 1,000 yards where Whitlock's weapon system offers no significant advantage. Force him to fight on terms that negate his strengths. But first, Rattler needs to make it personal. Needs to provoke Whitlock into abandoning his patient methodology. Needs to make him angry. Angry people make mistakes. On September 3, 1968, Gunnery Sergeant Raymond Patterson walks out of the mess hall at Hill 285 and takes 3 steps before a training round hits him in the chest. Paint mark. Center mass. In actual combat, Patterson would be dead. Patterson is a friend of Whitlock's. They served together at boot camp. They competed together on the rifle team. Patterson is one of 3 men at Hill 285 that Whitlock would describe as close to him. The shot came from 850 yards, well within range of a standard sniper rifle. The shooter is long gone by the time anyone identifies the firing position. Whitlock finds Patterson sitting against the mess hall wall looking at the paint mark on his uniform. Patterson is not injured, but he understands what just happened. Someone eliminated him from an exercise he did not know he was participating in. Someone made him a target without warning. Someone proved he is vulnerable in places he thought were safe. "Who do you think it was?" Patterson asks. Whitlock studies the angle of impact on Patterson's vest, calculates the trajectory, determines the general area the shot originated from. "Someone new," Whitlock says. "Someone good. Red Cell wouldn't risk operating this close to base unless they sent someone exceptional." "You going to get him?" "Yes. When he makes a mistake." This is Whitlock's methodology. Wait for the enemy to reveal himself through error. Most snipers cannot maintain perfect discipline indefinitely. They get impatient. They take shots they should not take. They expose themselves slightly more than they should, and when they do, they die. But Rattler does not make that kind of mistake. He is as patient as Whitlock, more patient perhaps because he has been doing this longer. 5 days pass, no contact, no more eliminations, no indication where Rattler is operating from. Then on day 6, Corporal Silas Webb walks to the latrine at 0300 and does not return. Guards find him at 0330 sitting in the sand with a paint mark on his back. Eliminated. He never saw the shooter, never heard the shot. He was walking to the latrine in the dark and someone shot him. Webb is Whitlock's spotter, his closest friend at Hill 285, the man who has been beside him for every major engagement since the record shot. Whitlock receives the report at 0400. He does not react visibly, does not curse or show anger. He simply stands, collects his gear, and tells Captain Crane he is going hunting. Crane asks how long he will be out. "However long it takes, sir." This is exactly what Rattler wants. He has provoked Whitlock into leaving the relative safety of Hill 285. Now they are both in the field, both hunting each other. The advantage has shifted. What Rattler does not fully understand yet is that Whitlock was raised by a woman who taught him that hunting is not about anger. It is about patience. It is about becoming part of the terrain. It is about waiting until the prey makes a mistake and then making one perfect shot. Anger is just another distraction to set aside, another piece of information that does not change the fundamentals. The duel. For 5 days, two of the most skilled snipers in the Western Hemisphere hunt each other through 40 square miles of Arizona desert. They do not see each other, do not make contact. They track sign. They predict movements, they establish positions and abandon them when those positions feel compromised. They exist in a state of hyper-awareness where every bird call might indicate enemy presence, where every unusual rock formation might conceal a shooter, where sleep is measured in 20-minute intervals. This is the purest form of the craft. No support, no extraction, no safety net, just two men trying to kill each other with rifles at distances where a single mistake is fatal. Whitlock moves primarily at night. He navigates by stars and terrain association. During the day, he finds concealment and observes. He is looking for anything unusual. Movement where there should not be movement. Absence of movement where there should be small animals or birds. Changes in terrain that look too regular, too geometric, too human. Rattler does the same. They are mirroring each other's tactics. Both men trained in similar schools of thought. Both understand that the first person to break discipline loses. On day 3, Whitlock finds a position Rattler abandoned. He can tell from the compressed vegetation that someone lay there for extended periods. He finds a single brass casing, 7.62 NATO, standard sniper round. He pockets the casing and moves on. Rattler is close, maybe 6 hours ahead, maybe less. On day 4, Whitlock stumbles. He is moving through a wash using the low ground to stay below the skyline when his boot catches on something. Old barbed wire half buried in sand. He does not fall, just catches his balance, makes a small sound, nothing loud, just the scrape of boot on wire, but in the desert silence sound carries. 280 yards away, Rattler hears it, identifies it as human, acquires the general area through his scope. Fires. The round passes within 18 inches of Corporal Webb's head. Webb has been following Whitlock at a distance, providing overwatch. He is carrying a canteen on his hip. The bullet strikes the canteen dead center, punctures both sides. Water sprays. Webb goes down, not because he is hit, because his nervous system interprets the impact as a wound. Because in the half second before his brain processes that he is not bleeding, he believes he is dying. Whitlock hits the ground and rolls behind a rock outcropping. His heart rate normally controlled spikes to 140 beats per minute. His hands shake. Webb is not moving. Webb took a round. Webb might be dead. 10 seconds pass, longest 10 seconds of Whitlock's life. Then Webb moves, sits up, looks down at the water spreading across his uniform, realizes he is not wounded, realizes the bullet hit his canteen instead of his body, realizes he just survived by 18 inches in a quart of water. Webb makes eye contact with Whitlock and mouths 2 words, "Holy shit." Whitlock's heart rate begins to slow. Webb is alive, but Rattler's position is now known. The shot came from the north, from elevated ground maybe 250 to 300 yards away. Whitlock cannot return fire. He does not have a clear target. He has a general direction, but shooting at suspected positions wastes ammunition and reveals his own location. So he waits. He and Webb remain motionless behind their cover. They do not move for 3 hours. They barely breathe. They become part of the terrain in a way that most people cannot comprehend. Complete stillness, total patience. Rattler is doing the same thing. He fired 1 shot and now he waits to see if his target reveals himself. Both snipers understand that the next person to move might be the next person to die. The sun tracks across the sky. Temperature climbs to 108 degrees. Both men are in direct sunlight. No shade, no water, just heat and stillness and waiting. At hour 4, a lizard crawls across Whitlock's hand. He does not move, does not react. The lizard pauses, decides Whitlock is just another rock, and continues on. At hour 5, Whitlock sees it. A reflection. Tiny, barely visible. 300 yards away, slightly elevated. A glint of light off glass. Scope lens. The physics of what Whitlock is seeing process in his mind instantly. Light reflects off glass when that glass is angled to catch the sun. Rattler's scope is catching light, which means the scope is pointed toward the sun, which means it is pointed directly at Whitlock's position, which means Rattler is looking at him right now. Has his crosshairs on him right now, is probably in the process of making the same calculations Whitlock is making. Both snipers have acquired each other simultaneously. Both have crosshairs on target. Both are in the process of making perfect shots. The question is who fires first. Whitlock's trigger is 4.5 pounds. Standard military spec. Rattler's trigger is estimated at 4.7 pounds based on the weapon he carries. Not a significant difference. Maybe 0.2 seconds in trigger break time if both shooters apply pressure at the same rate. But Whitlock has already been applying pressure. He started his trigger press the moment he saw the glint. Smooth rearward pressure. No hesitation. Rattler saw the glint of Whitlock's scope a fraction of a second later. Started his trigger press a fraction of a second later. In the mathematics of rifle shooting, fractions of seconds are the difference between living and dying. Whitlock fires. The 50 BMG round leaves his muzzle at 2,800 feet per second. It covers 300 yards in 0.32 seconds. In that time, it maintains supersonic velocity, does not tumble, flies straight and true. It enters Rattler's scope from the front, the objective lens 40 millimeter diameter. The bullet is 12.7 millimeters. It fits through the lens with room to spare. The round travels through 4 inches of scope tube, passes through the optical elements, through the adjustment turrets, through the entire length of the scope without touching the walls. Exits through the ocular lens, continues for another 3 inches, and strikes the dummy head Rattler has positioned behind his actual position. Whitlock does not know this immediately. He sees through his scope the exact moment of impact, sees Rattler's position and the dust kicked up by the strike. He does not see movement afterward. Webb, watching through a spotting scope from a slightly different angle, sees more. "Jesus Christ," Webb whispers. "You shot through his scope. The bullet went straight through the tube." "Confirm," Whitlock says. His voice is steady, but his hands are shaking now. Adrenaline dumping into his bloodstream. The realization of how close he came to dying processing through his nervous system. "Wait," Webb says. "He's moving. North side of that rock cluster. He's standing up." Through his scope, Whitlock sees movement. Rattler rising from concealment, rifle in hand, but no longer a threat. Rattler is looking toward Whitlock's position. Even at 300 yards, even without magnification, he seems to see exactly where Whitlock is. He raises one hand. Not surrender, not a wave. Acknowledgement. Then he sets down his rifle, which is the universal signal in training exercises that he has been eliminated, and begins walking toward Whitlock's position. It takes Rattler 15 minutes to close the distance. He walks slowly, hands visible, making no aggressive moves. When he arrives at Whitlock's position, he stops 10 feet away. Up close, without the distance and the scopes between them, they are just 2 men in desert camouflage, covered in dust and sweat, exhausted from 5 days of hunting. "That was the most impossible shot I've ever seen," Rattler says. His voice is calm, professional. "I had you. I had the shot. I was on target. You beat me by maybe 0.2 seconds. Whitlock does not respond immediately. He is looking at Rattler's destroyed scope, calculating the probability of what just happened. A 50 caliber bullet fitting through a 40 millimeter scope tube without touching the sides. The odds are astronomical. 1 in a million, maybe worse. "I got lucky," Whitlock finally says. "No." Rattler shakes his head. "Luck is when you miss your target and hit anyway. You aimed at my scope and shot through it. That's not luck. That's skill combined with an understanding of geometry that I didn't think was possible." He extends his hand. Whitlock hesitates, then shakes it. I've been doing this for 8 years, Rattler says. Olympics, Rhodesia, Red Cell. I thought I was the best. I was wrong. You're the best, and it's not even close. You almost killed my spotter. Would have if his canteen wasn't exactly where it was. I don't miss by 18 inches at that range. I was aiming center mass. The canteen saved him. Webb, still sitting in the wash, holds up the punctured canteen. Water has long since drained out. 2 holes, entry and exit. Perfect alignment. Can I keep this? Webb asks. I want to show my kids someday that their dad got shot and lived because he was hydrating properly. Despite everything, despite the tension and the near death and the exhaustion, all 3 men laugh. It is not funny, but it is the only response that makes sense. The alternative is to acknowledge how close they all came to actual death in what is supposed to be a training exercise. Rattler picks up his destroyed scope. I'm going to keep this, frame it, put it on my wall. When people ask what happened to it, I'm going to tell them the white feather shot through it at 300 yards, and they're going to call me a liar, and I'm going to show them the math. What math? Whitlock asks. The math that proves what you did should be impossible. 12.7 millimeter bullet through a 40 millimeter tube at 300 yards. The scope has to be aligned within 0.5 degrees of your bore axis. Your bore axis has to be aligned within 0.5 degrees of the scope. Both of you have to fire at almost the exact same moment, because if the timing is off by even a quarter second, the scopes aren't aligned anymore. The probability of all those conditions being met simultaneously is roughly 1 in 1.3 million. Rattler smiles. You're not a sniper, Sergeant Whitlock. You're a statistical anomaly. The Marine Corps should study you in a lab. What Rattler does not say what he is thinking but keeps professional is that he came very close to killing Whitlock. Came within a fraction of a second, and in that fraction of a second he discovered something about himself he did not know. He discovered that he is not the best, that there exists someone better, that all his training and experience and Olympic medals do not matter when facing someone who possesses a level of skill that transcends normal human performance. It is both humbling and terrifying, and Rattler does not know whether to feel relieved that Whitlock is on his side or worried about what happens if someone like Whitlock ever decides he is on the wrong side. The expansion. The duel with Rattler becomes the final validation. Word spreads through the Marine Corps, through the CIA, through military circles worldwide. The white feather defeated an Olympic shooter in a standoff that should have been impossible to survive. The scoped M2 Browning is no longer experimental. It is proven. For 8 months, Whitlock trains Marines at Hill 285. The program expands. What started with 5 students now graduates 20 per cycle. The methods are documented. The equipment is standardized. What was once improvised becomes doctrine. The white feather is no longer just Whitlock's symbol. It becomes the insignia of Marine Corps Scout snipers. Every graduate wears one, not to challenge the enemy, but to honor the man who proved that patience and precision matter more than firepower. Whitlock's confirmed eliminations in training exercises climbed to 67, each one documented, each one teaching a lesson to the Marine who died and to the Marines watching. This is what happens when you stand in the open. This is what happens when you establish a pattern. This is what happens when you think you are safe. In May of 1969, headquarters sends new orders, one final test before the program becomes permanent across all Marine divisions. The mission 3 weeks after the final validation exercise, Captain Crane calls Whitlock to his office. The captain looks tired, more tired than usual. He has been in meetings at headquarters for 2 days. When he speaks, his voice carries weight. Sergeant Whitlock, I have new orders for you. Final training exercise before the program goes fully operational. Yes, sir. Crane slides a folder across his desk. This is classified. You'll read it here. You'll memorize it. You will not take notes. When you leave this office, this folder goes in my safe and stays there. Whitlock opens the folder, reads. His expression does not change, but Crane sees his jaw tighten slightly. The mission parameters are clear. There is a high-value target at a training facility 20 miles north. The target is protected by a security element of approximately 30 fighters. The facility has 4 heavy machine guns. Patrols operate 24 hours. The perimeter is under constant observation. The target must be eliminated. The elimination must be accomplished by a single sniper. No support, no extraction until mission complete. The approach terrain offers minimal concealment. 1,500 yards of open desert between the last covered position and the facility perimeter. Sir, Whitlock says quietly, this is a suicide mission. It's designed to be impossible, Crane says. Headquarters wants to know if what we've been teaching here translates to real-world applications. They want to know if a single sniper can infiltrate a hardened target and accomplish the mission without support. You mean they want to know if I can do it? Yes. Whitlock reads the folder again, studies the map, studies the aerial photographs, studies the target profile. When do I leave? You're volunteering. You're asking, aren't you, sir? Crane nods slowly. 2300 tonight. Helicopter insertion 5 miles from the facility. You'll have 4 days to reach the target, make the shot, and exfiltrate to the extraction point 10 miles south. Just me. No spotter, no security element. This is a one-man operation. Whitlock closes the folder and slides it back across the desk. I'll need to do a map study, memorize terrain features, calculate approach routes. You have 8 hours. That's enough. What Whitlock does not ask, what Crane does not volunteer, is what happens if he fails. Does he get a second attempt? Does someone else try? Or does headquarters use this failure as evidence that the scoped M2 program was a mistake from the beginning? Crane is thinking the same thing. He has built this program from nothing. He has bet his career on Whitlock's abilities. If this mission fails, everything fails. The Marines will go back to standard doctrine. The scoped M2 will be classified as an interesting experiment that did not work. And Whitlock will just be another Marine with a story about the time he tried something crazy, but if it succeeds, if Whitlock can infiltrate a hardened facility, eliminate a high-value target, and exfiltrate successfully, then everything changes. The doctrine changes, the training changes. The Marine Corps gets a new capability that no other military possesses. At 2300 hours, Whitlock boards a helicopter with his gear. He carries the scoped M2 disassembled into component parts. He carries 40 rounds of ammunition pre-tested for consistency. He carries water, no food. He carries a compass, a map, and nothing electronic that could give away his position. The white feather stays behind. This mission requires complete stealth. No symbols, no psychology. Just one man crawling through the desert to kill someone from a distance most people think is impossible. The helicopter drops him at exactly 23:30. He waits until the sound of the rotors fades completely. Then he begins moving north. The technique is called worming. Infantry manuals describe it, but few people ever actually do it because it is brutally difficult and agonizingly slow. You move on your side, never on your stomach because that creates a wider disturbance in the ground. You move inches at a time, 1 inch per minute if you are doing it right. You pull yourself forward with your arms. You push with your legs. You disturb the absolute minimum of terrain. You become part of the earth itself. Whitlock has practiced this, not in any formal training. But hunting squirrels in Arkansas required similar patience, similar stillness, similar integration with the environment. He knows how to move slowly enough that nothing notices. He knows how to breathe quietly enough that sound does not carry. He knows how to exist in a state of motion so minimal that to an observer he appears completely still. For 4 days, he worms north. He covers roughly 300 yards per day. At night, he continues moving by starlight. During the day, he moves through the worst heat because that is when security is most lax, when guards are most tired, when observation is most difficult due to heat mirage. He covers himself with local vegetation. Desert scrub, creosote branches, small rocks. He becomes indistinguishable from the terrain. Patrols walk within 20 feet of him and do not see him. He controls his breathing so completely that even trained observers scanning with binoculars do not detect movement. On day 2, a rattlesnake crawls toward his position. The snake is 4 feet long, highly venomous. Moving would alert any nearby patrols. Whitlock remains absolutely still, controls his heartbeat, controls his fear response. The snake crawls within 2 feet of his face. Pauses, flicks its tongue tasting the air, decides Whitlock is just another piece of terrain, moves on. On day 3, a patrol walks directly over him. 4 men, one steps on Whitlock's hand with his boot. The weight is substantial. The pain is intense. Whitlock does not react, does not move, does not make a sound. The patrol continues. They never know they walked over a sniper. On day 4 at 0300, Whitlock reaches his final position. He is 700 yards from the target facility. He is positioned between 2 heavy machine gun emplacements. The gunners are 50 yards on either side. They are looking outward, scanning for threats approaching the facility. They are not looking at the ground behind their own positions where a man has spent 4 days crawling through their security perimeter. Whitlock assembles the M2. He does this in complete darkness by feel alone. He has practiced this so many times that his hands know the sequence without conscious thought. Receiver, barrel, trigger group, scope mount, scope. He loads 1 round into the chamber, then he waits. He does not sleep, has not slept more than 20 minutes at a time for 4 days. He simply exists in a state of controlled awareness, monitoring his target, waiting for the right moment. At 0615, the target emerges from a building. A man in his late 40s, wearing civilian clothes. He stretches, yawns. An aide walks beside him carrying a folder. The aide is between Whitlock and the target, blocking the shot. Whitlock's crosshairs are on the aide's back. 700 yards, light wind, clear conditions, perfect shot, but the wrong target. Whitlock waits, does not rush, does not take the chance that he can shoot through the aide and still hit the target behind him. He has 1 shot, 1 chance. He will not waste it. 3 seconds pass. The aide steps to the left. The target is clear, standing on a porch, completely exposed. Whitlock fires. The target goes down, center chest. The aide does not understand what happened. No one understands. The target was 700 yards inside a secured facility. No one should be able to shoot him here. It should be impossible. Everyone runs toward the tree line, the logical location for a sniper to hide. The place doctrine says snipers position themselves. Whitlock is in the grass behind the machine gun positions. The place doctrine says is impossible to reach without detection. He disassembles the M2, caches it in place. He will not need it for exfiltration. Movement is more important than firepower now. He crawls to a drainage ditch, follows it south for 200 yards. Then he stands and begins moving at a normal patrol pace. If anyone sees him now, they will see a guard who responded to the shooting and is now returning to his position. They will not see a sniper who just accomplished an impossible infiltration. It takes 3 more days to reach the extraction point. 3 days of moving through terrain, avoiding patrols, navigating without GPS or radio. 3 days of eating nothing and drinking water from his canteen that ran out on day 2. Forcing him to find springs and puddles in vegetation that holds moisture. The extraction helicopter finds him at the designated coordinates at the designated time. He climbs aboard. The crew chief hands him a canteen. Whitlock drinks, half pours the rest over his head. "How'd it go?" The crew chief shouts over the rotor noise. Whitlock just nods. "The target is down. Exfiltration successful. Everything else is classified. The mission is not questioned afterward. The target was eliminated. Headquarters gets their proof. The scoped M2 program is approved for full implementation across all Marine divisions. Whitlock's confirmed eliminations in training exercises reach 86. But there is a footnote. Intelligence reports later suggest the target may not have been the actual high-value individual. Rank discrepancies. Timing inconsistencies. The question is never fully resolved because in training exercises some details remain deliberately ambiguous. What is not disputed is that Whitlock successfully infiltrated a hardened position using methods that seemed physically impossible and exfiltrated without detection. The doctrine changes. The training standards change. What one man proved possible becomes what every sniper is expected to attempt. The mine. September 16, 1969. Highway 10, 30 miles north of Fort Sentinel. A convoy of 3 LVT-P5 amphibious assault vehicles moves south, returning from a training exercise. The LVT-P5 is an armored personnel carrier designed to deliver Marines from ship to shore. It weighs 37 tons. It can carry 34 combat-loaded Marines. It is designed to withstand small arms fire and shell fragments. It is not designed to survive 500 pounds of high explosive. The mine was buried during World War II. Fort Sentinel served as a bombing range in 1943. Thousands of pounds of ordnance were dropped on the desert. Most of it exploded, some did not. The unexploded ordnance was supposed to be cleared. Some was not. The mine has been buried for 26 years. It has survived heat and cold and flash floods and the passage of thousands of vehicles until today, until the lead LVT-P5 carrying Sergeant Eli Whitlock and 11 other Marines drives directly over it. The explosion is catastrophic. The vehicle lifts 6 feet off the ground. The bottom armor plate designed to deflect bullets does nothing against 500 pounds of shaped explosive. The plate peels open like a can. The fuel tanks rupture. The engine compartment floods with gasoline. Electrical sparks ignite it. The LVT-P5 becomes a furnace. Whitlock is thrown forward. His head strikes metal. He loses consciousness for perhaps 30 seconds. When he wakes, he is in fire. Flames surround him. The heat is intense enough that he can feel his skin blistering. The smell of burning gasoline and burning flesh fills his lungs. He understands immediately what happened. Mine strike. Vehicle burning. People inside. He needs to get out. He crawls toward light, toward a hole in the hull where the explosion tore the armor. He pulls himself through, falls 10 feet to the ground, rolls, comes to rest face down in sand. Someone is screaming. Not one person, multiple people inside the vehicle. Whitlock stands. His uniform is on fire in 3 places. He does not notice. He runs back to the LVT-P5. The hole in the hull is small, maybe 2 feet wide. He pulls himself back through into the flames. The interior is hell. Smoke so thick he cannot see. Heat so intense his eyebrows burn away. But he can hear. He can hear people screaming. He can hear people calling for help. He finds the first man by sound. Corporal Hayes, trapped under debris. Whitlock lifts the debris. Metal, hot enough to burn through his gloves. He does not let go. He pulls Hayes free, drags him to the hole, pushes him through. 1, back into the fire. The second man is Silas Webb, his best friend, his spotter for 2 years. Webb is unconscious, smoke inhalation probably. Whitlock grabs him by his gear straps, drags him to the hole, pushes him through. 2. The third man is screaming. Private Miller, 19 years old, his leg is pinned. Whitlock cannot free the leg, cannot move the weight, so he makes a choice. He breaks Miller's leg at the knee to collapse the joint. Miller screams louder. Whitlock drags him to the hole, pushes him through. 3. The heat is unbearable now. Whitlock's hands are burned. His face is burned. His lungs are filling with smoke. He should leave. Should save himself. Should let someone else come in and get the others. He goes back. 4, 5, 6, 7. He does not remember their names later, does not remember their faces. He just remembers pulling people through smoke and fire and pushing them through the hole. Remembers the weight, remembers the heat, remembers thinking that this is the 7th man and there should not be any more people inside, but he needs to check. Needs to be certain. He checks. The interior of the LVT-P5 is empty. Everyone is out. 7 men saved, everyone accounted for. Whitlock crawls back to the hole, pulls himself through one last time, falls to the ground outside. Someone grabs him, tries to help him stand. He cannot stand. His legs do not work properly. Someone drags him away from the vehicle. Someone else pours water on him, not to drink, to extinguish the flames still burning on his uniform. Only then does Whitlock look down at himself. Only then does he see the damage. His uniform is burned away in places. His skin beneath is red and black and white, blistered, charred in some areas. His hands are worse, 3rd-degree burns on both palms. He does not feel pain yet. Shock and adrenaline are blocking it. That will come later. In about 20 minutes, the pain will arrive and it will be the worst thing he has ever experienced. But right now, he just counts. 7 men, all breathing, all alive. The job is done. A medic arrives, takes one look at Whitlock and starts setting up an IV. Jesus Christ, Sergeant, you need a medevac right now. The others first, Whitlock says. His voice is hoarse, damaged from smoke inhalation. You're burned over 40% of your body. You go first. The others first. The medic looks at him, realizes this is not a debate, realizes Whitlock will refuse treatment until everyone else is treated. So he triages the other 7 Marines first, stabilizes them, then he returns to Whitlock. All right, Sergeant, your turn. Whitlock finally allows himself to lie back, to stop fighting, to let the medic work. The helicopter arrives 18 minutes later. By then, the pain has started. By then, Whitlock understands that his career as a sniper is over. You cannot hold a rifle with third-degree burns on your hands. You cannot achieve the stillness required for precision shooting when your nerve endings have been damaged. You cannot be a sniper when your body has been broken this completely. He is 27 years old, 93 confirmed eliminations in training exercises, 2 world records, the most feared sniper in Marine Corps history, and his career just ended in a fireball on a highway in Arizona because someone did not clear ordnance 26 years ago. The helicopter lifts off. Whitlock looks down at the burning LVTP-5, looks at the 7 Marines sitting in the sand alive because he went back into the fire. Looks at his hands wrapped in bandages that are already soaking through with fluid from his burns. He thinks about his grandmother, about the white feather, about the lesson she taught him. A hunter protects. A hunter provides. A hunter does what must be done even when it costs everything. He has been hunting men for 3 years. He has been very good at it. But he realizes this is what matters. Not the eliminations, not the records, not the fear he created. This, saving 7 lives, going back into the fire because that is what Marines do. Captain Crane visits him at the hospital 3 days later. Whitlock is conscious but heavily medicated. His hands are wrapped. His face is bandaged. He looks like someone who barely survived something that should have killed him. The doctors say you'll recover, Crane says. Burns will heal, scarring will be significant, function will be limited in your hands. Can I shoot? Maybe. Not like before. Whitlock nods. He expected this. I'm recommending you for the Medal of Honor, Crane says. You saved 7 lives. You went back into a burning vehicle 7 times. That's the definition of heroism. No, sir. Excuse me. I don't want it. Saving Marines is what Marines do. That's not heroism. That's the job. You don't give medals for doing your job. Crane sits down. He has known Whitlock for 3 years. He has watched him develop from a quiet kid with a rifle into the most effective sniper the Marine Corps has ever produced. But this is the first time he truly understands him. Whitlock does not see himself as special, does not see his actions as extraordinary. He sees himself as a Marine doing what Marines do, nothing more. The medal is not for you, Crane says quietly. It's for everyone else. It's so other Marines see what right looks like, see what the standard is, see what we expect from them. Then give it to the 7 men I pulled out. They're the ones who stayed conscious in smoke, who crawled when I told them to crawl, who survived. Crane does not argue. He knows he will not win. Instead, he compromises. Silver Star. I'll push for Silver Star. You'll accept that. When I'm dead, sir, give it to me when I'm dead and I won't argue. You're 27 years old. Then you have time. Crane does not smile, but he wants to. Even burned, even broken, even facing the end of his career. Whitlock is still Whitlock, still focusing on what matters, still viewing his own survival as secondary to the mission. 27 years later, in 1996, an aging Eli Whitlock will finally accept that Silver Star. His son will help him stand during the ceremony because by then multiple sclerosis will have taken most of his mobility. But that is years away. Right now, he is just a Marine in a hospital bed healing from burns that will scar him for life, knowing that the only career he ever wanted is over. 3 months after the mine accident, Whitlock can walk again. The burns have healed into thick scar tissue that covers 41% of his body. His hands are functional but limited. He can grip, he can hold, But the fine motor control required for precision shooting is gone. The nerve damage is permanent. The Marine Corps offers him a choice: medical discharge with full disability benefits, or transfer to a non-combat role. Teaching. Whitlock chooses teaching. In January 1970, Sergeant Eli Whitlock reports to Marine Corps Base Quantico, Virginia. His assignment: establish the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School. Take everything he learned in 3 years of training and combat exercises and turn it into doctrine, into curriculum, into a program that can produce snipers who think like he thinks, who shoot like he shoots, who understand that sniping is not about the rifle, it is about becoming part of the terrain. The school starts with 12 students, all volunteers, all expert marksmen, all men who think they already know how to shoot until Whitlock shows them they do not. He teaches them the bubble, the state of complete concentration where nothing exists except the target and the shot. He teaches them worming, the art of moving so slowly that movement becomes invisible. He teaches them patience, the discipline to wait for hours, days, weeks for the perfect moment. He teaches them to read wind by watching mirage, to judge distance without rangefinders, to calculate bullet drop in their heads, to understand that every shot is the culmination of observation that begins long before the trigger is pulled. He teaches them that the white feather is not about ego. It is about accepting responsibility, about making yourself the target so others remain safe, about understanding that the best sniper is not the one who kills the most. The best sniper is the one who protects the most. Over 5 years, 500 Marines pass through his program. Some wash out, some cannot develop the patience required, some cannot handle the psychological pressure of killing at distances where you can see faces. But most graduate. Most become functional snipers, and a very few become exceptional. Staff Sergeant William Hayes, 47, confirmed eliminations during Desert Storm, 1991. Corporal David Martinez, 62, confirmed during early operations in Afghanistan, 2001. Both men trained under Whitlock. Both men credit him with teaching them not just how to shoot, but how to think. The methods spread. The doctrine becomes standard. The improvised techniques developed by one farm boy in Arizona become the foundation of every military sniper program in the world. The disease. But in 1975, Whitlock's body begins to fail in new ways. He loses feeling in his left foot, then his right hand. Doctors run tests. The diagnosis comes back in technical language that means nothing until they explain it in simple terms. Multiple sclerosis, a disease where the immune system attacks the nervous system. Progressive, incurable, eventually fatal. The cause is unknown, possibly genetic, possibly environmental. The doctors mention toxic exposure from burning vehicles. They mention chemical residue from decades of military operations in the desert. They mention stress, but they cannot say for certain. They just know that Whitlock's body is destroying itself from the inside and there is nothing they can do to stop it. He continues teaching, even as the disease progresses, even as he begins using a cane, then a walker, then a wheelchair. He teaches from memory when he can no longer demonstrate. He teaches through stories when he can no longer stand at the firing line. The students listen. They take notes. They understand they are learning from someone who changed warfare. Someone who proved that one man with patience and precision can achieve what entire units cannot. On a morning in October 1979, Whitlock collapses at the rifle range. He wakes in an emergency room with no feeling in both arms and no movement in his left leg. The doctors tell him what he already knows. His career is over. The Marine Corps processes his medical discharge. 20 years and 55 days of service. 55 days short of the 20-year mark that would qualify him for standard retirement pay. Instead, he receives full disability. More money, actually. But money is not the point. The point is that the Corps is forcing him out when he still has things to teach, when Marines still need what he knows. Whitlock falls into depression. His wife Raylan nearly leaves him. His son Eli Jr., 13 years old, watches his father become someone he does not recognize. The man who taught Marines to be unstoppable is stopped, completely. And he does not know how to process it. What saves him is unexpected. A friend from Quantico takes him fishing. Sport fishing off the coast of Florida. Marlin and shark. Fish that fight for hours, fish that require patience. Fish that connect to something deep in Whitlock's nature that the disease cannot touch. The hunt is still there, just transformed into something that does not require killing men. Slowly over months, Whitlock comes back. Not physically. The MS continues its progression, but mentally, emotionally. He finds purpose again. He starts returning to Quantico as a civilian consultant, sitting with students, answering questions, telling stories, passing along wisdom that cannot be written in any manual. The recognition. In 1986, author Charles Henderson publishes a book, Marine Sniper 93 Confirmed Kills. It tells Whitlock's story, changes some names, alters some details for security, but the core remains. The farm boy from Arkansas who turned a machine gun into a precision instrument, who set records that stood for decades, who saved 7 men from fire. The book sells 500,000 copies. Suddenly, people outside the military know the name Eli Whitlock, know about the white feather, know about the shot through the scope, know about the 4-day crawl. Whitlock does not want fame, never has. But he understands that his story can inspire others, can show young Marines what is possible when you refuse to accept that something cannot be done. So he cooperates with subsequent authors, gives interviews, allows his methods to be documented. The honors accumulate. The Gunnery Sergeant Eli Whitlock Award established to recognize Marines who contribute to marksmanship training, a sniper range at Camp Lejeune named in his honor. The Rifle and Pistol Complex at Marine Corps Air Station Miramar, officially designated the Whitlock Range Complex. Springfield Armory produces a limited edition rifle, the M25 White Feather, bearing his signature and the symbol that defined him. Only 500 made. They sell out in 3 days. In 1996, 27 years after the mine accident, Whitlock finally accepts the Silver Star that Captain Crane recommended in 1969. The ceremony is held at Quantico. Whitlock is 54 years old. He weighs 112 pounds. The MS has taken everything: his mobility, his strength, his independence. His son Eli Jr., now a Marine gunnery sergeant himself, holds him upright during the ceremony. Whitlock can barely stand, but he stands, because Marines stand for awards, even when standing costs everything. The citation reads, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action, Sergeant Whitlock, with complete disregard for his own safety, repeatedly entered a burning vehicle to rescue 7 Marines trapped inside." His actions reflected the highest credit upon himself and the United States Marine Corps. Whitlock does not give a speech, cannot speak clearly anymore. The MS has affected his vocal cords, but he nods, accepts the medal, allows himself this one moment of recognition for an act he still believes was just doing his job. The end. Multiple sclerosis is a cruel disease. It takes everything slowly, methodically, without mercy. By 1998, Whitlock is completely paralyzed. He communicates by blinking, 1 blink for yes, 2 for no. His mind remains sharp, trapped in a body that no longer responds to commands. On February 22, 1999, in Virginia Beach, Virginia, Eli Whitlock dies from respiratory failure, a common complication of advanced MS. He is 56 years old. The funeral is attended by 2,000 Marines, active duty and retired, students from his Quantico classes, men who served with him at Fort Sentinel, men whose lives he saved, men whose lives he trained. The rifle range falls silent for 21 shots. A final salute to the man who changed how Marines fight. His son places a white eagle feather on the casket, the original, the one his grandmother gave him in 1959, the symbol that became legend. He is buried at Woodlawn Memorial Gardens in Norfolk, Virginia. The headstone is simple, granite, no embellishment, just the essential facts. Gunnery Sergeant Eli Whitlock, the White Feather. 1 shot, 1 kill, 1942, 1999, The Stevens Model 15, the cheap .22 caliber rifle that started everything, is donated to the National Museum of the Marine Corps at Quantico. It sits in a display case next to the scoped M2 Browning, next to Rattler's destroyed scope with the bullet hole through the center, next to photographs and documents and the white feather. Most visitors walk past without stopping. They do not know that the unremarkable rifle in the case once belonged to a hungry kid who learned to shoot because missing meant his family went hungry. They do not know that the man who carried that rifle would set records that stood for 30 years, would teach methods still used today, would prove that ingenuity matters more than technology, that skill matters more than equipment, that one man with patience and precision can change how armies fight. The numbers Whitlock's 93 confirmed eliminations remain a training record. His 2,430-yard shot stood until 2002 when Canadian snipers broke it using purpose-built rifles with computer-assisted ballistics. His shot through Rattler's scope has never been replicated. The probability mathematics alone suggest it never will be. But the real legacy is not in the numbers. It is in the 12,000 Marines who graduated from the Scout Sniper School he established. It is in the 50 caliber rifles that every military now uses for long-range precision, a direct result of his improvised experiments. It is in the doctrine changes that followed from one farm boy refusing to accept that a machine gun could not be a rifle. In 2024, a Marine captain teaching at Quantico tells his students about Eli Whitlock, about the white feather, about getting into the bubble, about becoming part of the terrain. The students listen. Some take notes. Most will forget the name by graduation, but a few will remember, a few will understand, a few will carry forward the lessons learned by a hungry kid in Arkansas who discovered that the difference between missing and hitting is everything. The last word. His wife Raylan Whitlock outlives him by 17 years. She gives one final interview in 2016, 6 months before her death. The interviewer asks what people should remember about her husband. She is silent for a long time. Then she speaks. Eli never enjoyed it, never wanted to be famous. He just wanted to be a Marine. He learned to shoot because his family needed food. He became a sniper because Marines needed protection. He taught because young men needed knowledge. Everything he did was about serving something larger than himself. People remember the kills, the records, the feather. But I remember a man who cried after his first deer, who couldn't sleep after seeing faces through his scope, who went back into fire 7 times because that's what you do for your brothers. He wasn't a killer. He was a protector who happened to be the best shot in history. The interview ends. The camera turns off. Raylan Whitlock looks at a photograph on the wall. Her husband, young, healthy, no feather, no rifle, just a Marine in dress blues on their wedding day. "One shot, one kill," she says quietly, but it was never about who he killed, it was about who he saved.